Here's Brody Brazil.
You know, for a lot of reasons, conversation around the A's staying in Oakland, they center entirely around Howard Terminal and the hopeful ballpark that gets built. But not a lot of people ever discuss, well, what happens at the Coliseum site? What does that look like 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road? Now, as of yesterday, when I recorded this, we found out some new information. November 16th, 2021, the city of Oakland entered into an ENA, an exclusive negotiating agreement with AASEG, that's the African American Sports and Entertainment Group, to purchase and develop the other half of the Coliseum site. When I say other half, I don't mean geographically like east or west. I mean financially, because the A's already own the other half. Now AASEG is part of this ENA and eventually gets the first opportunity to work with the A's and develop the site in the future. Full disclosure, I should also point out one of the other groups trying to get into this opportunity, and they were not able to via the City of Oakland's vote yesterday. It was a group led by my good friend, my colleague, Dave Stewart. I have personal feelings and reflections and disappointment about the fact that Stu and his group and all they had put together were not able to be part of this moving forward, but I will digress. That's for a different time and a different opportunity to explain. But I want to talk about this site, which we've seen now several renderings for. We've seen a lot of different ideas, keeping the Coliseum-like structure a bit intact, sometimes wiping it out entirely. Most of the different plans always involve Oracle Arena, but this is the real estate, this is the land that we're talking about here, right between the BART tracks, right between 880. You know the site very well. What's on it right now is just 2 venues and a huge parking lot. So I want to come up with a wish list for the Coliseum site. These are things that some of them have been talked about, but some of them I would for sure like to see. Like number 1, repurpose Oakland Arena. It needs a new identity. It was called Oracle for so many years. It was just called the Coliseum Arena for years before that. Repurpose this building into something specific. I can't tell you what that is. Maybe a concert venue specifically, maybe a smaller venue. Maybe they take some seats out to make it a little bit more intimate for a different professional team and league. I don't know, but using it as it is right now, I don't think is optimal. I'd also love to see education campuses being built, and I don't know the level, if it's, does the area need an elementary school, middle school, high school, all the above, some sort of higher education campus. I would definitely love to see that. We all understand that here in Northern California, in the Bay Area, that housing is very important. Housing of all varieties, of all affordabilities. I would love to see quality grocery and farmers markets here. I would also love to see a way that the Coliseum gets archived. What do I mean by that? And we'll get to a photo, a rendering in just a second. To somehow memorialize the Coliseum, whether it's keeping the first deck as kind of like an amphitheater, or whether it's just outlining the field somewhere, showing people where home plate used to be. I don't know what it is, what they can do, or what makes sense. But somehow, some way, you have to archive the original Coliseum site. To build right over it, pretend that it never existed, I think would be a terrible injustice. And also, I think it's important to connect this land, if you can, to the waterfront. Whether it's a pedestrian bridge that goes over 880, you're not very far away from the shoreline trail, from the estuary, from a nice waterway. And I think that would be so important for anybody that's living or working in this area to open up access from the Coliseum site that it's never had before to a very near trail and waterway. Those are things on my wish list. Here again is a rendering from one of the A's early concepts of how they would kind of salvage the Coliseum site. Like, that's a lot of seats. That's a big facility right there. There's, rooms and spaces underneath those seats that currently exist. I don't know if that's how it looks, but something to that effect is what's being, talked about right now. And here's another rendering. Again, this rendering could be from anywhere in the world, but this is kind of what they're thinking about for how it looks, or how it would look at the Coliseum site. I'm now going to share with you some things that I actually think will not work at the Coliseum site. And full disclosure here, I'm not a real estate guy. I'm not a land developer, so I don't have experience in all those other areas, but I do know sports. And I'm going to tell you here two things sports-wise that do not work for me at this site. Number one is an NFL expansion team. And first off, do you really think the NFL wants to come back to Oakland? They've already been in and out with some success and a lot of struggles and some failures. You can't tell me there's already not a bad taste in their mouth. But if we're building a brand new stadium for this NFL expansion team, are you totally forgetting how valuable this land and this site is for something else? Because you would need most of the site all over again to demolish the Coliseum, build something new, brand new parking lot. It's kind of like we rehashed everything and put a new coat of paint on it. Obviously, it's different than that. But again, do you really want to repeat the same mistake that we've lived through for the past decade or two in the East Bay? I don't think so. The other thing that I feel does not work, and this has been highly discussed, is a WNBA expansion team specifically for this site. Now, let me declare before anybody takes this the wrong way, I feel like the Bay Area in general has been well overdue for a WNBA team. We should have had one 5 or 10 years ago. The league has already been around for several decades. I'm surprised that our region, whether it's San Francisco, Oakland, or San Jose, that none of these markets have ever had a WNBA team. It kind of blows my mind. I realize how important the league is. I think it would do special things in our area. But I just think for this location specifically, this site does not fit. At the Coliseum, at the Oakland Arena, that place seats 19,000 plus. That's going to be way too cavernous for a WNBA team on a regular basis. You look across their league, as I've done, a lot of successful venues and arenas seat 7 to 8 to 9 to 12 to 13,000. But 19,000, are you really going to get that crowd all the time? Are you really going to have an electric environment all the time? Are you really going to have something that is sustainable and successful at that location? I want this to happen. I want this also to be set up for success. And I just feel like at the Coliseum site, at the Oakland Arena, as it sits currently, is not the best location. Now, if you're telling me that you might build another small arena on site, I would understand that. I would be all for that. But then I would also wonder, how does that conflict with the current Oakland Arena that you may want to use for concerts and other events that come into town? It just does seem a little bit conflicting there. So as it stands right now, I don't see how this site works for football or the WNBA as much as they have been talked about. But what it all comes down to is who should get final say here. Obviously, the developers are going to do a lot of listening. They've already done a lot of listening. I think it's important to recognize this. The Coliseum site is always going to be a regional draw. I mean, sure, people from Oakland are going to frequent it on an often basis. But you're also going to get people coming from Berkeley, Livermore, Fremont, Hayward, San Leandro, San Lorenzo, shout-outs to Castro Valley, all over the East Bay, and even across the Bay, El Cerrito, Hercules. I'm just trying to impress you now with all the places I can rattle off the top of my head. But it's always going to be a regional draw. I do think the region should have a say in this. I do think the entire region should be listened to. I feel like right now it's been Oakland heavy. I'll get to that in just a second. I feel like the entire region should have a say. But ultimately, who should get the final say? This is an Oakland priority. If you're a resident of Oakland, if you do business in Oakland, if this is in your backyard, you should get final say. You should be presented with all the options. You should hear what the entire region is saying, but you should ultimately get final say. And hopefully this is a good decision. How this gets developed, hopefully it's all good things and we're just choosing like, hey, do you want cake or pie? Hopefully they're not too difficult of decisions. But again, what happens next at the Coliseum? Hopefully I've spelled out some things you agree with, maybe some you don't. Let me know in the comments section below.